Hello everyone, my name is Vixen and welcome to my channel. Today I will be restoring a sort of rare Monster High doll, Bite Draculaura. This is one of my favorite dolls. I love that Monster High did a twisted take on some fairy tales, and I think that this color palette on Draculaura is fantastic. I got her for an incredible deal on Facebook Marketplace. She was about $35, I think, with her diary and this stand. And the diary is so beautiful. I never realized it was holographic, and the inside is in really good shape, so I am super pleased to have this doll in my collection. She's in decent condition. She does have some yellowing up there around her forehead, as you can see when I pull back her hair. She also has some on the back of her head that's a little more noticeable, but from what I can tell, she doesn't have a ton of glue seepage, which is really nice. Her hair is soft, so I hope that I only have to do just a simple wash and don't have to do any glue treatment on her. She does have her earrings and bracelet and everything. Not bracelet, oh my gosh, her purse. The dress is in beautiful condition. She does have painted nails, which I will be removing those just because I want my dolls to be in their normal condition. Her shoes look great as well. They do have a few spots where there's some random green or pink paint, so I will be painting over those today as well. But I'm really excited to do a full restoration, and I hope you guys enjoy. To make things easier for myself, I've removed Draculaura's clothes, accessories, and hands so I can get a better look at her body. I've put everything in a separate bag just to make sure nothing gets lost. The process I'm about to do is called retrobrighting. It's to remove the yellowing from plastic or vinyl, and this is commonly used in My Little Ponies and also on dolls. I do recommend that you wear some sort of gloves or protection on your hands because I am going to be using a chemical. Today I'm going to be using 40 volume cream. This is a developer that you can find at any hair salon and sometimes drugstores. You can also use 12% hydrogen peroxide cream. It's the exact same thing, but you need to be very careful. Do not touch your hands to this or any of the doll's paint because it can potentially ruin it. This is a pretty simple process, but you do want to be careful because you don't want to destroy your hands or the delicate paint on a doll. So if we look at Draculaura, you can see there's that yellowing up there by her forehead and on the back of her head. And so I'm just going to carefully apply this developer and try to remove that yellowing. In order to do this, I just take a Q-tip with a small amount of the developer. I'll wipe some of it off just so I have a sharp tip to work with, and then I'll carefully apply it to where I see yellowing, making sure I avoid any of her face paint. I also try to avoid touching the hair, but since this is plastic, it doesn't really accept the peroxide in the developer, so there's usually not much damage done. And so I'm just going to continue applying this hydrogen peroxide until I feel that it is covered very well. I'm currently only doing the front of her face because this is a kind of two-step process, and I will do the back of her head on its own. If you do get any peroxide on the paint, simply wipe it away, or you can also use water to wash it away. Now that the developer is spread across her face pretty evenly, I am going to wrap her face in plastic wrap. This is essentially what you do when you bleach your hair and you make a bleach cap, except we're doing it with a doll this time. I took my gloves off just so I can have better mobility, but you can certainly keep gloves on if you like. So I'm going to just take her and press her face down in this plastic and wrap it really tightly around her head and hair. I'm trying to make as tight of a seal as possible to keep the heat in, and I will just press the plastic around her head as tightly as I can get it. I also push down on the product that's around her forehead just to make sure that we have a really nice seal and the product is on there tight. I also like to put a rubber band or plastic tie like I have right here around her neck or her head just to secure the plastic in place and make sure that seal is very tight. And once this is on, I'm going to leave her in the sun or under a UV lamp for about 3 to 4 hours and check on her. While the retrobrighting is going on, I am now going to attempt to remove the nail polish from these nails. I can't tell if this is true nail polish or just some acrylic paint or marker, but I'm going to be using 100% acetone on these nails. Be very careful with this. This can be really strong and damage plastic if you're not careful, but I will be super cautious in trying to remove this paint. I have some cotton rounds right here that I'm going to use, and I'm just putting some acetone on here, and I'm going to carefully rub and press down on the fingers to see if I can remove this paint. As you can see, with some struggling, that pink is starting to come off very slowly. This is just going to be a longer process, and I will continue to press down on these nails and remove this nail polish. And after a few minutes, we can see that Draculaura's hands look back to normal. Now I'm going to move on and start repainting the black areas on Draculaura's shoes. As you can see, there's some random green spots here on the side of the shoe, and there's one on the front. I'm not sure what happened, but this is probably a factory error, just some extra paint that got on these, but this is an easy fix. So I just have some black acrylic paint and a paintbrush with a little bit of water on it, and so I'm just going to take a tiny amount of this black paint and spin my brush to get a finer tip, and I am just going to start going over these green spots and returning them to their natural color. Not sure why the camera decided to unfocus there, but the front of the shoe looks way better now, and I'm going to move on to the side. I'm going to leave these to air dry for a couple hours and then seal them with a matte paint sealer. Here are the painted shoes up close. After I sealed them, I think they look absolutely stunning, and the black parts look good as new. After sitting in the sun for a couple hours, I have pulled Draculaura out, and I can already tell that the yellowing looks way better. So I am just going to remove this rubber band and the plastic wrap to get a better look at her face to see if I need to do this process again. But looking at her up close, that yellowing is almost completely gone, and I'm really happy with the result on the front of her face. That only took me about 3 hours, and I'm very pleased with it. You can see on the back the difference between the front and back, and I am super happy that this turned out great. Since the retrobrighting turned out great, now I am going to wash Draculaura's body and hair. I do this with almost every single doll that I get just because I want to make sure they are clean and loved thoroughly by me since they will be in my collection. So right now I am just rinsing the entire body with some lukewarm water, and I have a toothbrush with me and just some basic dish soap, and I am going to be scrubbing down her entire body. I usually use a toothbrush so I can get in some difficult dirt spots or just get a better clean on them in general. You can also mix a paste of the dish soap, baking soda, and water for a deeper clean, but I'm always careful about their faces, so I tend to just do this part on the body. I'm also going to scrub the part of her face where I put the retrobrighting and make sure this is super clean. I don't want any of the developer remaining on her face or getting into her hair, so I make sure it is perfectly rinsed off. After her body's been rinsed off, I'm going to wash her hair, again with some dish soap. You can do this with shampoo too if you like, but I'm just going to scrub this throughout her hair and make sure I get all the way to the ends and into her scalp. She doesn't seem to have any glue seepage, which is really nice. so I won't be doing any glue seepage treatments today, but this is a really fun process to do and only takes a couple minutes. Once I feel like her hair is washed good enough, I just rinse it out with some semi-warm water and make sure I get all of that soap out of her hair. After her hair has been shampooed, I'm going in with some conditioner. You can use any conditioner. This is just what I have on hand that I use for me. And I'm just running it through the ends and scalp of her hair, making sure to coat it all thoroughly. You don't have to use a lot of conditioner. I, for whatever reason, decided it needed a ton. And then I'll let her sit for a couple minutes with it in her hair. After letting the conditioner sit for a little bit, I am going to comb out her hair. I'm going to be using a fine-tooth comb on her hair just because this is way easier at getting out tangles, and since this is in doll scale, it makes more sense to use a fine-tooth comb. I usually lay my dolls on a flat surface and start combing out their hair all the way at the end and then working my way to the top. She does have some tangles, so this process does take me a while, but it's really nice to go through this, and her hair turns out so beautiful and straight at the end, and I am so pleased with it. Once her hair is all the way combed out, I go in for a final rinse with, again, some lukewarm water. I'm just going through and making sure none of that product is left in her hair because it can leave it sticky. And then I spend a good amount of time trying to find the part in her hair. It's around her eyebrow, but it doesn't seem very noticeable to me at first, and I struggle for a while to get it in place, but I eventually get it and her hair looks beautiful already. After combing out and rinsing Draculaura's hair, I'm going into the final step of her restoration, which is going to be a boil wash. I have some boiling water here in this kettle that I'm pouring into a large bowl. This is the process that gets your doll hair to go back to its original form, which is straight in this case for this Draculaura. And so I'm just going to dip her hair in this boiling water and swirl it around to coat all of the fibers of her hair. I usually don't try to dip their head or touch it in the boiling water because that can release some extra glue. I was also pointing out that my bowl has a little divot that I can rest her head in because it's a ramen bowl, which is awesome for this. And I'll do this for maybe a couple minutes, and then I'll leave her sit in the boiling water for 5 to 10 minutes so her hair can straighten out. After Draculaura has cooked for a little bit, I'm going to remove her from the boiling water and wring out all the water in her hair and dry the rest of her body. I'll comb out her hair and restyle her and put her back in her clothes, and I can't wait for you guys to see the big reveal. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this Monster High doll restoration. If you like watching doll videos, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!